Next question is again from practice test number 1 of SAT, page 39, number 10. And this is a question. It's a function notations type of problem. Okay, so your equation is given in a function notation g of x equals ax squared plus 24. For the function g defined above, a is a constant with and g of 4 equals 8. All right, g of 4 equals 8. And what is the value of negative 4? Okay, so it says here a is a constant. So therefore, we need to solve for that constant first. Okay, we need to find that a. So remember, this is just another fancy way of saying y equals ax squared. Maybe mine is too thin. All right, y equals ax squared plus 24. Okay, where we don't know what a is. We need to find a first. Okay, so but we have this first given right here, so that means when you write this is the function notation of a point. So for instance, you have a point x comma y, for instance, and that's equal to 2 comma 3. That means your x is 2 and your y is 3. If you want to write this in function notation, then you can write it as g of x, so which is 2 and equal to 3. So when you have something like this, that means this one right here is your independent value and this is your dependent variable x, and then that's your y. So we can substitute this in this equation right here, right? So we can say from your equation y equals ax squared plus 24. This given right here, that means this is your x and this is your y. So I can just say that 8 equals a times 4 squared plus 24. And from here, I will have 8 equals 16a plus 24. I'm going to subtract 24 on both sides. So therefore, I'm going to have negative 16 here equals 16a. So therefore, my a is going to be equal to negative 1. So you just solved for a. All right. So from here, you can rewrite the whole equation and replace that a with negative 1. So therefore, the new equation now is g of x equals negative 1 x squared plus 24. Okay, so that's the new equation now. So first things first, we need to solve for that constant using the given value here. Once you solve for that constant, you substitute that constant into the equation. Now you're ready to answer this actual problem. So the question is, what is g of negative 4? That's the question. Well, it's obvious here that x is equal to negative 4. So it's just a matter of substituting that negative 4 into this equation. Every time you see an x, you replace it with negative 4. Okay, so let's do that. So I'm going to say x negative 4 is equal to negative 1. Well, I have an x squared there, so I'm going to replace that with negative 4 x squared, negative 4 squared plus 24. So therefore, g of negative 4 is equal to negative 1 times 16 plus 24. G of negative 4 is equal to negative 16 plus 24 or equal to 8. What does this mean? Okay, so when if you have if you were gonna graph this, this represents a certain point on your graph, and that point is negative 4 comma 8, meaning when your x is negative 4, your y is 8. In here, when your x is 4, your y is also 8. Why is that? Well, because this is a quadratic function. So when you remember, when you graph that, it's symmetrical at one point, right? So it's gonna look something like this. It's gonna look something like this. If this is negative 1, so that means it's open downwards, right? So this is gonna be your y-intercept is 24. So if that's 24, and then you have this point right here at negative 4, it's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4. It's gonna be positive 8. Let's say this is 8. So this is negative 4 comma 8. And then when your x is also 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's going to be positive 8. And it just makes sense because this is a quadratic formula. Okay, so it's going to be, and it's symmetrical along the x equals 0. On the y-axis, it's symmetrical on the y-axis. Okay, so I hope this helps. Again, let's recap. If you have a problem like this, wherein they say a is a constant, you need to solve for that constant first. How do you solve for that constant? There will be something given, something like this, wherein this is your x, you substitute in that x, this is your y, replace this by that y, and therefore you will only have one variable. You will be able to solve for a. Once you solve for a, you substitute it back into the equation. Everything else now retains their old name. So g of x equals, this is your a, x squared, and then substitute this. Okay? Now, what about if they gave you g of x equals 4? What if that's the problem? Not g of negative 4. Well, that means this one right now becomes your y, right? So instead of, well, in this formula right here, you have g of x equals negative 1x squared plus 24. Okay, that's the original formula. This 4 does not get substituted into the x, it gets substituted into the y. So now you will have 4 equals negative 1x squared plus 24. And then from here, you can solve for your x because you only have x as your variable. Okay. Now, if you still have question, let me know. I'm just a message away.